Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the not 99 names.
Man, you lose a track, bro. That's our motto.
Of episode of Tag Along. I'm here with Suleiman Hani, one of our latest additions to the AlMaghrib roster. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about hacking Islamic education.
Hacking?
For adults.
Wow.
Yes.
That's so contemporary.
I know, right?
What do you want to hack?
Okay, so a couple of questions, and I want to start from this one thing. This is a question that I've asked a couple of people. I'd like to get your thoughts on it too.
Sure.
So when it comes to Islamic education, speaking from a perspective of adults, higher education, right? You hear about people from getting education, going to foreign lands in one of few major areas. You've got the West African, Mauritanian education. Then you have your Middle Eastern, maybe Azhar, maybe in Saudi Arabia, you have like in Medina University or Mecca, or before people might go to Yemen, or they go to Kuwait or Qatar or Riyadh or Jordan, right? Other people go to the subcontinent region like India. Like my brother, he went to Nadutul Ulama in Lucknow, right? Some people go to Pakistan. And then there's others that go into the Pacific Asia, i.e. Malaysia, right? Or Indonesia even, maybe. And then they'll go and they'll do studies there. One thing that I wanted to know is, what is the difference between the studies and what they study, how they study, if you could potentially maybe shed some light on it. And maybe you can't, but you can maybe describe your experience in terms of what you've studied and how you've seen people study in this regard.
Sure. So the first thing to keep in mind, every university will have its own curriculum, right? And then even if there is a curriculum, you have to decide which department you want to pursue.
Sure.
On the bachelor's level, you have most universities would have, for example, College of Hadith.
Okay.
Right? College of Sharia. You have College of Dawah, College of Quran.
Okay.
This is obviously Jama Islami in Medina. You have others that focus on, within the masters, would focus on specializations within each of these. Right?
Okay.
So a master's in Hadith or Fiqh and Usul al-Fiqh or
Okay.
Aqidah or something. So you pursue one of these and you take, for example, Sharia. You're going to study some Sirah.
Okay.
You're going to study some Fiqh.
Is Sirah in of itself a college, or just one of the
No.
subjects that's studied?
So subject
Okay.
that's studied.
Got it.
You're going to study Fiqh. You study some Quran.
Okay. What about the language, Arabic?
Arabic.
Is that considered to be under the College of Quran, or is that in its own department?
Oh, so if somebody's entering the university and they get accepted and they don't speak Arabic, they have to go through the Arabic program.
No, but what about somebody who wants to go into
Years.
advanced linguistics and things like that?
Oh, there's a College of Arabic.
There is a College of
Yeah.
Arabic. Okay, and people do study Arabic as
Yes.
its own discipline.
Yes, but it's not technically an Islamic field.
It's not considered Islamic
It's
science.
It's language, yeah.
Okay, got it. But Arabic is a prerequisite in general but not in every location. Like I know, like for example, in India, they might say Arabic is a prerequisite and they might teach Arabic, but they'll teach it with a handicap. So even if somebody doesn't necessarily speak it, they'll get by.
Right, every place would be different.
And even in
absolutely.
Malaysia too, I've heard. Whereas I don't think that would be the same case in, say, the Middle
Middle
East,
East, yeah.
because everybody there culturally speaks Arabic.
Right. Basically, within each of these, like Sharia, we were given examples of different subjects that people study.
Okay.
You have fiqh that goes in depth. You have, for example, some universities, depending on the program, they'll give fiqh of salah as 1 semester or 2 semesters.
Okay.
Fiqh of hajj, fiqh of zakah, fiqh of there are many other subjects like marriage, divorce, janaza.
So fiqh essentially is a lifestyle subject.
So this is fiqh al-ibadat.
Okay.
The rulings on things.
Okay.
Worship, acts of worship.
So, okay, fiqh is specific to the context of whether something is considered ibadah, but in general, everything we do in life could be considered ibadah if the attention is there.
Right. No.
Therefore,
so fiqh, it's everything. It's the ruling on things. Right.
Okay, the ruling on
Jurisprudence.
everything. Okay.
The ruling. Yeah.
Okay, if it's allowed, not allowed, disliked, recommended, and just straight, it's cool,
Okay.
right?
That's Bilad's term. That's cool.
Mubah, whatever.
Interesting.
That's what I call it. Whatever.
Wow. MashaAllah, bro. Title of this video, whatever. So you got the subjects of fiqh.
Okay.
You have a focus on Quran. Depending on the university, obviously you have Hadith.
Okay.
Right? So these are some of the comprehensive subjects. Some of them will make you study that country's history.
Sure.
Which I believe is really unnecessary.
Is it unnecessary? Because maybe, I mean, it would give context to how knowledge came there, right?
It's not about knowledge. No, it's a history class about that country. For example, 2,000, 3,000 students who are coming from all around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they can study the history, but
Okay.
is it really part of the Sharia program? It's like taking an elective for engineering that has nothing to do with engineering. It's like beneficial for
it would
one
make
reason.
sense to take the history of the development of a particular engineering method that was motivated by some sort of political situation in the past, like i.e.
Right, but not taking like, philosophy 132 or something.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's like not just an elective to fill the sake of the elective. Obviously, these universities have curriculums for a reason.
Okay.
I'm not speaking on behalf of any of them. They perhaps do have some benefits that they find.
Sure.
Anyways, the point was these are some of these subjects that are covered, generally speaking, but the university itself is limited. You study at the university, you'll have, the basic bachelor's.
Maybe the better question is not what's covered in university. Okay. Maybe the appropriate question would be maybe along the lines of, what should an individual that is seeking to develop a good Islamic education be seeking to cover? And maybe to better qualify that, and I think it also depends on the individual's goal. Right.
Absolutely.
So if I were to look at it, right, there's several levels, right, in terms of how deep you want to go into the subject, right? You have the layman. What I mean by the layman, in like say an American context, somebody who is an adult but doesn't have a college degree. Their approach to a lot of things is very different from somebody who has a bachelor's or a master's in just general education. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I would consider the guy or the gal with a bachelor's or a master's as above average in terms of education.
Okay.
Right? So somebody who has that generally also tends to seek more knowledge in other areas as well.
Generally, yes.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying.
We have like the obvious exceptions of people who drop out and do their own thing and end up being more successful.
Right, but those are outliers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Those are the exceptions.
Then then beyond the educated, I would say the general educated. I would consider the third category could maybe be the person who is the aspiring student of knowledge.
Okay.
Right? So, and this is somebody who isn't going to become a scholar, but at the same time, they want more than a general education that's above a layman. And then the other one that I would consider is your scholar or your aspiring scholar.
Student of knowledge.
So you have the aspiring student of knowledge, and then I would say the student of knowledge en route to scholarship. Right? I consider these 4 different levels.
Interesting.
I would consider
Bilal's hierarchy, huh?
No, yeah, this is just my personal understanding of now I want to start at the layman. Right? I don't believe that a layman should be recommended to or gifted something like Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim.
Absolutely agree. That would be a terrible idea.
Right. But then the question is, what are the subjects that a layman should know? And what would be the appropriate resources for them to?
That's a great question, bro.
Yes.
Obviously, it's the approach is a little subjective.
Yes.
I would say it depends, like you said in the beginning. It
Let's
depends
say,
first on the objective.
Okay.
What is it that they want? So, for example, some laymen, some people come and
they
say,
don't want to be ignorant in the practice of their deen.
In what aspect, right? So usually it's
5 pillars, I think.
So usually it's fiqh. That's what I'm saying. Like 90% of the questions, the Q&As are about fiqh rulings. Is this permissible? Is this not? Can I do this? Can I not? What if I did this? What should I do?
Lifestyle. Like I remember Ammar mentioning something like an idea, and I think it's a great idea if he ever runs with it. With Sheikh Walid, the idea was like the slacker's guide to entering paradise.
That would be an amazing idea.
Right? And
hey, if Ammar doesn't do it,
so
Bilal's gonna do it.
Right? So like, and I think part of it is that reality, that like, what can I do to enter paradise?
Right. What's the least that I can do to enter paradise?
Right. And as I understand, this is just based on the hadith of the Bedouin.
Right. The basics.
Right. If I follow the 5 pillars and nothing else, and I'm sincere and on that, then I'm good.
Right. You're good to an extent because the scholars say, that first pillar, the shahada, comes with basically following the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, for example, alcohol is not mentioned in the hadith. Interest is not mentioned in the hadith.
No.
Killing is not mentioned in the hadith.
Right.
Right. So, the 5 pillars are the pillars of Islam. Yes, they get you to paradise. Why? Testifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what gets you to Jannah. No doubt. Also, we assume that there's a lot of mercy that comes with fulfilling the 5 pillars. Forgiveness. Because if you're praying the 5 prayers, you're doing hajj, you're doing, you're giving zakat, then you're likely, these things, if you're doing them, you're likely being influenced in other areas of your life.
Okay.
So you're likely doing a lot of other good too. And people
Sure.
who slack off with prayer and people who slack off with fasting and other things, they likely are slacking off with other areas.
Okay.
So it's more comprehensive than just the 5 pillars.
Sure.
Is what I'm saying.
So it's the 5 pillars and how they contextually. Okay, then maybe it could be that 5 pillars plus the various facets of life. And if you go by modern day educational economics, and I'm talking about what sells.
Okay.
The top 3 things that people are seeking information on, just in general, is health, wealth, and wisdom.
Yeah.
Right. So health in relation to wisdom, health in relation to fitness and things like that. Wealth in terms of finances, careers, and whatnot, and wisdom in relation to relationships and just getting along better with people.
Right.
Right. So would it be appropriate that maybe the 5 pillars plus fiqh in these 3 areas?
The fiqh of these 5 pillars in these 3 areas.
Yes.
As in wealth,
Health, wealth, and wisdom.
related to fiqh, and then rulings of.
Wealth related to, because
where does rituals come in? Wisdom?
No, relationships.
Yeah, so it comes under the third one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you're putting under Bilal's hierarchy again, you have a lot of these hierarchies. It would fit under.
I mean, look, my hierarchy is very contextual to the time and place and society.
Right, but where does rituals come in?
What do you mean?
Like prayer. Is that health?
No, that's what I'm saying. 5
wealth?
pillars in addition to, like, I think.
Oh, in addition to, I thought you were trying to put the 5 within the 3.
Or the 3 within the 5.
The 3 within the 5 makes sense, but the 5 within the 3
because
does
within
not.
prayer there is health, there is wealth, and there's relationships, right? And within fasting there's health, wealth,
Right.
and all of that, right?
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Or you can look at the form. It's interesting because health, wealth, and wisdom is the 3, and the 4th is spirituality, right? It is.
Oh, that's interesting because then this would all shift to 4.
Right, but I don't believe personally. I don't see spirituality as its own thing.
Separate thing.
Spirituality is
everything
encompassing within everything that we do in life. So it's not its own slice, so to speak.
Right.
So
let's go back to the main question.
Yeah.
What should somebody at this level?
Yeah.
What should they be concerned with learning?
Yes.
I would say the first thing is they need a source, a scholar, or an imam, somebody who's trustworthy, to always ask questions to.
Okay, but let me. Okay, that's understandable, but not everybody has that. Okay,
But that's why it's the first thing, because it's something that basically gives you many
So,
other
have a
solutions. Many other solutions. Mentor, yeah, I would say religious mentor. Yeah.
Religious mentor, religious and spiritual mentor.
That is important. Why? Because it resolves many of the other issues that come up. Right?
Okay.
Whether it's theological or fiqh or seerah or doubts in faith,
Sure.
everything's answered when you have a scholar.
Okay.
The second thing is I would say they should seek the basics about the 5 pillars, the acts of worship.
Okay.
Learn the basics of salah
So
and tahara.
purification.
And then when Ramadan comes around, they need to learn the basics of fasting, what invalidates the fast, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Now, some people think these are irrelevant. They're like, these are dry subjects. Why should every Muslim have to learn these?
Purification makes sense because that's something you do every day.
Right.
And it's funny that Sheikh Saad Taslim was making the argument that the most relevant fiqh that people should learn is his class, which is trends, which has to do with body image, culture, identity, and fashion.
Okay.
Right, and it's like because those are things you deal with every day, right? In terms of what you wear, you have you're either with clothes or without clothes.
Right.
Right. Like these are like essentially that's fiqh.
So you're saying, this is something you do every day. You might as well learn it.
Right.
Absolutely. So you're required as a Muslim to learn the things that you are engaging in terms of obligations.
Yes.
Frequently, especially.
So what you do every day.
There you go.
Right. And every day you are dealing with people. Every day you're seeking rizq.
Yes.
You're seeking sustenance, seeking wealth. And working.
Haram. Yeah. Dealing with
and at the same time, every day you're putting stuff in your body, and you're choosing not to put stuff in your body, and you're choosing to be active or not be active, and that will essentially affect your health and fitness.
Yeah.
What would be the appropriate resources? At least, okay, we identified one is a religious and spiritual mentor.
Right.
Could be an imam, could be a scholar, could be some sheikh on YouTube whose name is Suleiman Hani, maybe. No.
Nice try.
Nice try.
Slipping that in
there. But then the question that comes up now is there any books that they could read?
Depends on which of these they want to cover.
Okay.
Yeah, there are countless books about every single one of these.
Is there like a standard, simple, like for example with seerah?
Okay, so
Like
I'll give
I
you a
would
standard.
suggest, like, hey, read Martin Lings's Muhammad.
I usually would suggest When the Moon Split.
Yeah, but that book.
It's more
Okay, I
summarized.
hate. I'm sorry. I like that book. Reads so terribly.
I would say it's more summarized. It's easier to read for younger audiences.
Younger audience. I'm talking about the adult.
I didn't mean young like children.
No, I think it is more
Like
appropriate for
college
like a high
students.
schooler.
Okay, so again, so who are we talking about here?
No, I'm talking about the adult. I'm talking about
As
the
in-
college or post-college type of individual.
I know many people have benefited from that book.
When the moon split.
Yeah,
Okay.
many converts as well.
Okay. Fair
But
enough.
again, it's subjective.
Sure.
Right? There are many good books. I'm not saying
Yeah.
what you suggest is not good. There
Because
are many
like
good
like for
authors.
me, the only reason I would defend Martin Lings's Muhammad is because it reads like a novel, right? It reads very easily, and maybe this in this case, When the Moon Split would be appropriate. Martin Lings would be for the general educated.
Maybe.
Okay.
Sometimes the questions of authenticity come up with different books.
Sure.
Not any of the ones that we mentioned, but in general,
Yeah.
authenticity obviously is
Sure.
of highest priority. So, anyways, with regards to fiqh of prayer or fiqh in general, if
Mhm.
somebody wanted to start taking matters into their own hands of learning and
Yeah.
reading from a book, I would say, for example, they could read fiqh sunnah.
Fiqh Sunnah for the layman doesn't know Arabic.
It's in English.
Okay.
Because you're saying they want to learn fiqh.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know at what point they went from layman.
Basic fiqh. I'm talking about the health, wealth, wisdom fiqh.
Right. I don't know at what point they went from being layman to your category of general education or
No, I'm not talking about general education right
Advanced
now.
layman.
I'm talking about for the non-college educated adult.
right. So then, generally speaking, the layman doesn't really need to go and read. If this is the hierarchy,
Yeah.
they don't really need to go and be reading a book. They should have a scholar that they're going back to or a fatwa bank that is consistent with their issues. But if they're reading books, then they're progressing away from being a layman. Right.
Well, no. Here's the thing. I don't like a layman. I wouldn't say is illiterate.
No, I'm not saying they're illiterate.
Right. No, but like so just because somebody doesn't have a college degree doesn't
I
mean
was
that's,
not saying that at all.
No, but it just kind of it felt like
I'll
that,
be that.
right?
That's messed up.
I'm sorry. It kind of felt like that. But no, my question then would be is like because like books like dude, Kindle, massive market. Most people that read this stuff are not college educated. Right. Most of the stuff that people read is entertainment anyway. But then I guess the question now, because keep in mind, I'm not asking for recommendations that are scholarly, that are academic, but more so help with their, maybe more along the lines of self-developmental.
Away from fiqh then.
So the layman perhaps should be focusing a little bit less on fiqh and more on tazkiyah?
Yes.
Yes?
I would say, well, again, fiqh is important for these issues here.
Okay.
Everyday issues, practical issues. Tazkiyah is important. Why? Spiritual purification usually leads people to having higher standards in seeking knowledge to begin with,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Sure.
And then the third point related to the layman is basic theology.
Okay.
And I would say this is important. Why? Because now theology is everything.
Sure.
Right? People are constantly encountering doubts, random theologies or ideologies around the world. So it's important to know your faith. Who are you? Why are you Muslim? Is it just because you were raised as a Muslim?
Okay.
Right.
But doesn't basic theology in a way also connect back to tazkiyah?
Well, tazkiyah usually is discussed when we're talking about spiritual purification, right? Zakah or zakah
Sure.
or something.
Yeah.
So,
But spiritual
aqeedah-
purification in the sense of like it could be things like, hey, not like cleaning ourselves up from destructive habits, right? Developing good habits that are
Right.
spiritually
That's tazkiyah.
right. And at the same time, I think a big part of it is akhlaq, manners, and interactions with people, right?
Yeah.
Which goes back to the wisdom part,
Right.
right? And maybe wisdom is where the tazkiyah is tied into,
Yeah, that would go there.
right? Although there are elements of tazkiyah in wealth and fitness.
And spirituality.
Well, no, again, so for like,
I know. I know. I
So,
got you.
so
I'm messing up your hierarchy.
don't do that, man.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's mubah.
This is where I get OCD. You know, I got my structures, and then you're like, oh, here.
No structure. Add a new one. It's cool. It's mubah. As Bilal said in 2017.
It's cool, whatever.
The ruling on this, it's cool.
It's whatever. Yeah,
whatever.
It's cool, man. Whatever.
Tell the youth that, inshallah. So again, basic theology. Know your faith.
Okay.
What is Islam? What is belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala names and attributes. I would say at this level, that's something that's beautiful.
So know Allah.
Know who is Allah. Who is the one that you are worshiping.
Okay.
His majesty.
And I think that kind of basically sums up the layman's reality, right? Then now next question would be then if we were to go into the general educated folk, this is the person who I would say would be open to reading books, maybe attending seminars,
Okay.
but not seeking a bachelor's in Islamic studies by going overseas or spending 10 months.
Okay, so this then is the one who's more serious about knowing about their faith, whatever it takes,
not
to
blindly
learn.
following.
Right, to learn about the faith, but not necessarily to have a degree or to be a scholar. Or
Right,
like that.
right.
So then I would say with this one, there are a lot of different resources, right?
Okay.
Aside from, like you said, there are books, there are also seminars, there are events at the masjid, weekly lectures and series and stuff like that. I would say, aside from everything that's learned in the layman phase, such as basic theology, basic who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, names and attributes of Allah, take things to the next level, learn, fiqh, right? Like fiqh al-sunnah is a book that's usually studied in Jordan. So it's a very famous book, fiqh al-sunnah.
Okay.
That gets into fiqh. The problem is you'll find difference of opinion about what. Fiqh al-sunnah is comparative fiqh, right? You'll say, when it comes to tashahhud, what should you do? This guy said this guy said this.
Is that what it is? Comparative fiqh?
It's comparative fiqh, and the author basically comes to a conclusion. I believe he is Shafi'i. So you're not studying one madhab. What would be more ideal for many people... You're
following him as your madhab.
No. You don't have to follow his conclusion. He's just stating his conclusion.
So it's more or less a research work. And his opinion on that research.
Yes.
Okay.
But then it goes through everything.
Wouldn't that potentially confuse the general educated individual who doesn't want to follow things blindly, because now his question would be like, well...
Hey, that forces them to move on to the next...
Right, but this is not for the people who are seeking to move on.
No, I understand. But if they really are serious about studying and learning the evidences, this is an example.
But that's the thing, they're not. They don't want... Okay, so let me clarify. They want to be... So, come closer to Allah for sure. Health, wealth, wisdom, and how that applies into the 5 pillars. Yes. Know what to do on all facets of life, but at the same time, don't necessarily... I guess maybe...
Let me ask you a question. What does AlMaghrib Institute teach when it comes to fiqh of prayer or fiqh of tahara? Do you know? Like which madhab do they teach?
It depends on the madhab of the instructor.
That too, but no, in terms of content.
Yeah, it depends on the instructor.
No, they teach all the opinions. It's comparative fiqh.
Right. Some instructors will give, and I would say as part of the older instructors, the original instructors, they will always give you the differences of opinion, which is appreciated, I guess, to the college education. And now that I'm looking back at it, of the classes that I've attended and stuff, they'll be like, look, this... But at the same time, I guess it also depends on the level of the person who's attending. If that's their first seminar or their second or third seminar, they'll be like there's a potential for maybe some confusion.
Well, here's what I remember, and this is what I think I think they're still doing, Allahu A'lam, is that you'll teach, for example, with one aspect of tahara or prayer, you'll teach, these are the 2-3 opinions, this is what's the strongest opinion.
Right. So exactly. So the instructor themselves will...
This has always been done.
Right.
I'm not saying present the opinions and just like go ahead.
Right.
No, of course. Okay. And that's what I'm saying with this as
But the thing for me that I had to always get over, that my teacher, like the imam and mentor that again, this goes back to the foundation, you need a local spiritual mentor, is that but I was told that this is the stronger opinion. Yeah. Right? And then the imam goes, no, that's the stronger opinion in his opinion.
Right.
And that just blew my mind. I was just like, that's an opinion of an opinion. Oh, that's so cool. Wow, this is more actually human than I anticipated.
Yeah. That's fiqh.
And I think that factor should be understood from the get-go.
Well, it usually is explained that there are different opinions and that this is subjective based on...
But instead of saying that this is the stronger opinion...
Right, that's not what scholars usually say, right? They'll say, I believe this is a stronger opinion, wallahu a'lam, and Allah knows best. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think this is... And I think perhaps that's maybe something that should be... One should be more in tune to.
That's true.
Right? Is maybe sometimes the instructor might mention that, sometimes they might not mention that. Yeah. And whereas when somebody's learning, be like, okay, like the newer instructors, like they will say, look, and this is something I really appreciate about Muhammad Mani, is that the opinion of my teachers is this. Yeah,
that's what a lot of people say. The opinion of my teachers, the scholars, others, whatever.
Yeah, and it's puts the individual in a more humbling position.
Yeah. It's like, it's not my opinion. Who
am
I to have an opinion?
Right, exactly. So the idea of
basic fiqh.
Basic comparative fiqh.
Right. Well, here's where the difference of opinion comes in. You have some people advocating for, in the beginning, at this level, studying comparative fiqh, which is what AlMaghrib does, right? Yeah. And then there's other approach, which is one madhab. This has been the case for the majority of the ummah for
I would argue that you study a madhab if you're the aspiring student of knowledge.
That's your argument, right? So
Okay.
what I'm saying is it's subjective. You
Yeah.
find some opinions of many scholars will say whatever level you're at,
Yeah.
never dive right into comparative fiqh. Rather, comparative fiqh comes after you've
But
mastered.
even in the situation of following of studying a specific fiqh, you still need the guidance of your spiritual mentor, and in the end, you're following his opinion on that fiqh
Right.
to
So
what is today here.
okay. So where does that come into play? That comes into play with who's your religious mentor, right?
Right.
For a lot of history, most of the scholars would follow a madhab. This is the reality. I'm not advocating for following a madhab, by the way.
Right.
I'm just saying there's a debate.
Well,
Should you study a madhab, master fiqh, because then you'll understand a methodology, because everyone has its usul.
But if you're trying to be a student of knowledge, right, and you're trying to understand methodology and things like that,
Right, no. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying about the content. That's like at the farther level. In the
Yeah.
earlier level, for the layman, let's say just follow the madhab.
Okay.
Right? Whatever the madhab says, like get a book about the madhab of this,
Yeah.
follow it. That's it. That's
Okay.
all you need. That would be a great resource for this person. That would also be a great resource for this person who wants now within that book the evidences.
Mhm.
Right? Because it's consistent, one usul, one way, and you're following this madhab. However, everyone should be taught, and this is where the debate comes in, if there are stronger opinions outside the madhab.
Yeah.
Do you take or do you not? There's a difference of opinion about this.
And then the question that comes into play is, in whose opinion is that opinion the better opinion?
That's where these people get confused.
Right. And I think this is where you have that failsafe, and that failsafe is who is your religious spiritual mentor.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're all safe Islamically by having a religious mentor. Right?
Yeah. But okay, so I think this is the thing that this comes back down to, and it doesn't have to be just one person, right? You can have multiple religious spiritual mentor
multiple
mentors.
teachers, yeah.
And
As long as you're not going.
but
for
are
one
they?
teacher
Because
to-
here's the thing: on the layman and general education level, would you consider them a teacher, or more so a guide and mentor?
It depends on the student and what they're going through.
Okay.
A teacher, for me, for example, I would say is somebody who I'm constantly learning with.
Yeah.
Like the content.
Like for example, I would consider Ammar a teacher of mine because I'm going through the 99 names with him,
Okay.
beginning to end.
There you go.
As opposed to, hey, I got a question about the 99 names. I go to somebody in general, like the imam or something. Like I would consider him a potential guide or
Okay.
prospective guide, not even the
Yeah.
spiritual mentor.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got what you're saying.
So I think this is the difference that comes into play.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
let's say they chose this route of comparative fiqh. They go
Yeah.
with this. This is the general education.
okay.
But then they want to see evidences. They take the conclusions or the religious mentor's conclusions. But now they're learning more a little about
Sure.
everyday practical fiqh.
Okay.
And they could be learning seerah at the same time, as we said. They could be learning names and attributes of Allah.
Okay.
They could be learning. I wouldn't say at this level they would be learning anything about hadith in terms of studies or discipline. They would be taking the hadith with commentary
Okay.
at this level. Like let's say one of the most common is the 40 Nawawi.
Okay.
Right,
Hadith
that's one-
commentary.
Hadith commentary, scholarly commentary. That's for the general.
And that would be 40 Nawawi.
Yeah, the most printed hadith book in the world.
Okay. What was the other one? There was I had
Sharh of Muslim, right?
there was actually
Fath al-Bari.
there's so these are a couple books that AlMaghrib instructors use, which is Bulugh al-Maram
Bulugh al-Maram,
and Adab al-Mufrad.
Al-Adab al-Mufrad,
Right.
al-Bukhari.
So what are these?
So Al-Adab al-Mufrad
Okay.
is
And would you consider them in this level or at this level?
it depends on what this, because even this level is like a varying people, right? Some people want to learn more than others.
That's understandable.
For example,
Okay.
with manners, how much do you want to learn about manners at this level? Like, what do you want to see? What do you want to learn? Everyone will vary at that level.
It's not about what they want to learn. This may be more of a question of what they should be learning at this level. I would think manners is something that somebody
Depends
should
on
be
the individual.
level.
Well, manners goes back to the layman.
Right. But the question that comes up is now, what is the source of the knowledge of manners?
So in that case, it would be Al-Adab al-Mufrad. However, Al-Adab al-Mufrad
Mhm.
by Bukhari, it's all about manners, right? Al-Adab.
Yeah.
It doesn't include commentary. So what would you say to the layman, like to go read Al-Adab al-Mufrad
Okay, so these books, when I say
as resources?
as resources, not to be read by yourself, but someone to, or maybe a book that also does the
Okay.
commentary.
Okay, in that case, that would make sense, and I would say everyone should be learning about manners.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
But in that
Al-Adab
case-
al-Mufrad would more or less be not by itself.
What do you mean by not by itself?
Not
Not studied alone?
Yeah.
Yes. And actually, you can extend that to
So is there a book that goes into the commentary of Adab al-Mufrad?
There's a book, there are a lot of authentic books about good manners in general.
Okay.
Good manners in Islam.
Sure.
You can find all the big publishers like Dar es-Salam,
Okay.
IIPH. They have a lot of books about all of these topics for the layman.
Okay.
Everything, literally. You can find afterlife, you can find Islamic creed, Adab al-Mufrad, good manners. You can find selections from Adab al-Mufrad with commentary.
Okay.
Nawawi 40. So I would say find an Islamic publisher that is authentic.
So essentially
basic
commentary, that's what you're looking for.
Commentary,
At this level?
when it comes to hadith, I would say yes, commentary is the most
Okay.
important thing. Don't go read hadith on your own.
Right.
And more importantly, I would say at the layman level, and even this level, if you, aside from the religious mentor, if you have a consistent source of resources,
Yeah.
like Dar es Salam or IIPH, they're
What's
trustworthy.
IIPH?
International Islamic Publishing House.
Okay.
You have a constant source of authentic books for every audience. These are for the masses.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that answers. Sorry, like to be frank.
Yeah.
That answers this question much better, because they'll find everything there that they want to learn, and they'll look at it and be like, I want to learn this. Right, it's authentic. You trust it because they go through an authentication process. Like I had a book through one of these publishers that took maybe 6 months just for them to make sure every single hadith is authentic. Everything that I said is according to our theology, and so on and so forth. They have like 4 different 5 sheikhs.
Okay.
Right. So I would say if you
Which
have
one is this? This is IIPH?
IIPH.
So essentially, when it comes to books of hadith looking for commentary, you mentioned Hadith Nawawi, Adab al-Mufrad, maybe?
So you want suggestions on books of
Hadith, which commentary that they should definitely go over?
this level?
Yes.
I would say these are sufficient at this level.
What, 40 hadith and Adab al-Mufrad? That's
yeah,
it?
but 40 hadith, you have some commentaries that are like 300, 400 pages. Like you can study it for a year.
Okay.
Well, not a year, unless you're going really slow.
No, I'm just saying, if you're
Okay,
going,
so
if you're trying to go through 400 pages, you can do that in a month if you're slow.
At this level?
You're a general educated, college educated individual.
Yeah, but Islamic studies, that's why I said this level varies from individual to individual. We know
Okay.
some people who are very motivated to study a lot, but they don't want the degree.
Right, that's why you don't want the degree,
you
so
have
you
some
want to
people-
just go through it.
Some people don't really want to study that quickly. They just want to take their time very slowly, once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. It's very lax, but they're not laymen.
No, they're not laymen, and that's why
You
I'm
know
saying
what I
it's like if you wanted to get an overview, and maybe this also has to do with how the commentary is positioned and how it's framed.
That's true.
Hey, like what is this and who is it for?
That's true. So, for example, are these people who like would attend every single Maghrib class that comes to their city?
Of course not.
No, these people right here.
They wouldn't go to every single Al-Maghrib
It's
seminar.
4 or 5 a year, right?
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
I don't know about that.
I go to one Al-Maghrib seminar every few years.
It's alright. We're not talking about you, bro. That's not good. No. So, are you here? No.
No, look, honestly, this is the kind of person that might go to one Al-Maghrib seminar a year.
No, that's about preference. Maybe that's preference. Like
Yeah.
some of these people might be learning a lot, but it might not be at Al-Maghrib Institute.
Again, a lot I think is also relative. Is the fact that maybe this is maybe the appropriate question would be is like, what is the basic standard of Islamic education that somebody at this level should have as a foundation?
Basics of everything that is obligatory as well.
Okay.
So everything that they deal with on a practical level.
So how is that different from the basics of worship, 5 pillars, prayer, purification, and fasting?
So this one here, they would learn like you said, they would learn about the fiqh of.
They would learn the details.
Well, you suggested they would learn the evidences. You're right. You
Okay.
said I don't want to
Not
follow blindly.
So they would know what the layman knows, but not blindly.
So that's your suggestion.
I'm asking.
Right.
Would that be appropriate?
That was the initial suggestion.
Yeah.
I think that's useful. I don't think it's realistic for them to learn every evidence.
Okay.
All right. They would probably read it, but as for knowing it or memorizing it or something like that, I think it's not realistic to expect them to really know all of that, right? Unless they're teaching it or conveying it or defending it. But generally speaking, yes, people at this level want to know, okay, what's the proof for this?
Okay.
Right? So, yeah, learn the basics of fiqh. Why is it like this? Learn the basics of seerah. Learn the basics of ulum al-Quran, I would say. Get into introduction to the science of the Quran.
So I think maybe somebody in this situation, in an American context, should know the basics of things like seerah.
These fields right here that we mentioned,
Yes,
I think it's good for them to read a basic book introducing every single one of these.
Okay. So
like
basic,
Introduction to the Science of the Quran, Sheikh Yasir Qadi. That's actually the greatest book in English on the subject, right? There is nothing like it in terms of English language.
Yeah.
There is nothing like it.
Okay.
Introduction to the Science of the Quran. That gets people from at this level to an advanced state in terms of it's an introduction, but it gets them a lot farther than where they were before. The average Muslim would never learn these things.
Gotcha. So basically get an introduction to each of the sciences of Islam.
Yes, and I think a lot of that is what Al-Maghrib Institute does as well.
Right.
In 2 days and a half.
Yeah, they do. They and I think there's another project that they're working on that would be geared towards maybe between the layman and the general educated to basically give them all the essentials of Islam, all the essentials of their faith to go from A to Z. You come in whatever level that you're at and you leave with all the basics down. As a lead up to that is Faith IQ.
Right.
So just in general, faithiq.org. As a short answer, have an introductory foundation to each of the sciences of the Quran.
That's the right track. Get a comprehensive introduction to the subject.
Okay. As a quick recap, for the layman, 90% fiqh, 5 pillars, essentially know health, wealth, and wisdom, and how that ties back into one's purpose in life, and the application of that through the 5 pillars. How to pray, what are the fasting, purification, and through all that, go seek out a religious and spiritual mentor, and also develop your relationship to Allah by knowing Allah. Get to know who the Prophet ﷺ is. Study the seerah, right? And maybe someone, like if it's a book, great. And maybe for the general educated individual, I would even recommend Sheikh Yasir Qadi's seerah series, which is 100 episodes. So better get cracking. And then on the other hand, so once you get onto that level, you get your essentials of faith down. Then you go into the general education situation, the college educated master's degree possibly. Get to know all of the foundational sciences of Islam. And the question now is, what are all of the foundational sciences? Hadith, Da'wah, Sharia, Quran, Arabic, and Aqidah.
I wouldn't say Da'wah is technically a foundational science of Islam.
Okay.
But Da'wah is extremely important. We were talking about the colleges at some of the universities, not
Okay.
even all. Right, but these are the basics. You have Quran, right?
Yeah.
You have Hadith, you have Fiqh, Usul, you have Aqidah.
Purification, does that fall within itself? Or within?
So Tazkiyah and Adab are usually put together.
Okay.
Sometimes it's placed under Aqidah. I think actually that's what AlMaghrib does. You have Tazkiyah and Adab together.
Yeah.
You have Fiqh and Usul al-Fiqh. You have History.
History, yes.
Well, you wrote Sirah, right?
No, I didn't.
Included. Oh, okay. So Sirah we mentioned.
History plus Seerah.
Sirah's within it.
You know, if I could ever see myself going into the aspiring student of knowledge,
Right, you would do
maybe
history.
I would totally
100%.
do history.
Yeah, I can
Yes.
see that.
You can probably look at all of these sciences from the lens of history.
You could technically.
Yes.
Technically, yeah. But then if you look at it from the lens of history, like for example, fiqh, you can say, how was the development of fiqh? Right?
Yeah, evolution
But
of
then when
fiqh.
it's evolution of fiqh.
Yeah.
But then when you talk about like, let's derive rulings and stuff, that's
That's
not really
different.
history.
Yeah. That, you're not.
Yeah, history could apply to all of these because you're seeing how they developed.
Okay. Gotcha. How did the Arabic language develop? How did the Quran develop? How did the Sharia become? How did fiqh go from where it is? How did usul develop? How did we get to the qawaid of al-fiqh? How has da'wah evolved? What are the issues were back then? How did lead to the issues that are today? In terms of hadith sciences, I feel as though it is a branch of history.
No, it has its own branch.
It has its own branch, but I feel as though that it is because at the end of the day, the science of hadith itself is a methodology of doing historical research.
That's one aspect, though. That's
Okay.
like literally one aspect. There's many others, right? For example, if you're analyzing the metin, the content of the hadith,
Yeah.
and you're not focused on the chain of transmission, that's a
Yeah.
whole different area. There's the ilm al-riwaya,
Uh-huh.
right? The narration, ilm al-diraya.
Mhm.
You're looking at the chain, or you're looking at all the fields within the content of the hadith.
Sure. Okay.
So again, history, yes, you can use to see how it developed.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily
The subject matter itself.
subject matter within all the branches of hadith.
Okay.
As we said with hadith, there's
So it's
jarh,
basically, from a history perspective, you are learning about the story of each science,
history, yes,
but you're not
about
learning the
story.
science itself.
Right.
Okay, got it. So this is basically where you would kind of start exploring, as a general education individual, what these sciences are.
Absolutely.
Cool. So guys,
If you're still there.
yeah, if you're still here, I commend you. I salute you for sticking around.
That's cool.
And enduring my curiosities. Having said that, I'll see you guys later. Assalamu alaikum.